Hello everyone. Today is Friday the 4th of November. I've been missing from this platform for a couple of weeks now, for which I apologize. The 1 week I had absolutely no voice, having escaped the whole 2 years of COVID with not so much as a cold or a sniff. 2 weeks ago I suddenly went down flat with something that felt like flu. The doctor gave me antibiotics for it, and it was probably a form of Omicron. So Mike followed a few days later, and we were both flat and out of things for a week or two. But we got through that by God's grace. However, our energy levels were very low, and I had to go and get some vitamin B injections just to perk me up to get me through last weekend, which was the weekend of our big parish fete, the St. Peter's Fair. Those parishioners who were involved were marvelous. Everybody came and did their part, and we did make a decent sum of money, though we are still counting, so I can't give a total yet. But I do just want to use this opportunity to thank the parishioners who are watching this reflection for all that you did to make that day happen. Then things went south for me after that. Some of you may be aware that my mother had a fall and hurt her leg. She is a SASSA pensioner with no medical aid, which meant I had to take her to our local Van Velden government hospital for an x-ray. Initially, we thought it would go quite quickly because there were only 2 people ahead of us in the queue when we got there. But if you know how triage works, as more urgent cases come in, the ones that seem less urgent get put on hold. So in the end, we were there for 6 hours, with my mother lying on a gurney in the corridor, eventually getting very cold and having a lot of pain in her back. It really wasn't a good experience. However, the x-ray revealed that nothing was broken, and by God's grace, we managed to get through that. But she was still pretty immobile, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to manage her at home. So we got her into a very nice facility at Macadamia Frail Care, and we happened to get a few free days there because we've owned a unit there for some years, and we've been paying frail care levies for many years. So it was a great help and another sign of God's grace, and we're very grateful. We are now at a point though where we have to make decisions about my mom's future, our future, whether we get a carer for her or whether she will be able to get back to semi-independence, how soon she can come home, etc. Now, all that detail is not of any great relevance to most of you. But what I want to bring through in all of this is that I have had a tough time. It may seem sometimes that I have all the glib answers to everyone else's problems, but I never see it that way. Life is what it is, and sometimes it hits me as well. My answers remain the same. I've been trying to keep my job going, trying to meet people's needs, draw up agendas, plan services, write sermons, and see certain people who have to be seen, as well as trying to keep things running in my household. And what it reminded me of is that we need to reach out when we are in trouble. None of us is Superman or Superwoman. We all need friends, and prayers help so much. We should never be ashamed or so private that we don't reach out. So I did. I reached out to our prayer chain and various individuals, and people have been marvelous in reassuring us of their prayers. And some have reached out in various other ways, for which I am extremely grateful. But that's God's grace, and that's how God interacts with us. When we reach out to Him, He leads us to the right people and resources for our needs. But the second thing that this whole period of time has brought home to me again is that the world right now is not a happy place. A lot of people are struggling financially, emotionally, physically. There's a lot of depression. People are feeling hopeless. And I can identify with that tendency. But because I know that Jesus has promised never to leave us and never to abandon us in our time of need, I know that in my own case, this too shall pass. I know that Jesus is going to bring us through this, and I will look back one day and see why it all happened and what good has come out of it. And I will continue to glorify God despite the difficulties. Paul says in his second letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 1, he says, "Therefore, among God's churches, we boast about your perseverance in faith, in all persecutions and the trials you are enduring now." The people of that time were going through great persecution. I'm not going through persecution, but the forces of evil are always at work, especially where God's people are doing the right things. No sooner had we had our wonderful mission reassuring us that there is hope for the future when many things seem to go wrong. And this is often when people think they are going through persecution or being punished. We're going through a really bad time in history, but it's a time of refining us, not punishing us. Getting back to that passage I just read about perseverance. You know, perseverance is something that you have to do by faith. You cope by coping. You exercise faith by doing faith. Faith is not going to come upon you while you wait for it. You've got to exercise your faith to make it work. And you've got to persevere even when things are going badly, to get through it and to see the result. So I thank those who've been praying for us, encouraged us, and who have understood when I have not been as available to them as usual. But I know that God is greater than the problem. There's a little poster on our notice board that's been there forever, outside the church in the porch, and I think outside the office. But it's so true, and it says, if God places a Goliath in front of you, remember that there's a David inside of you. Remember little David who slew the giant Goliath? Let's never lose hope. By all means, reach out. Cry if you have to. Share your burdens with one another. But don't ever think that God has abandoned you and that there's no hope and that there's nothing more that can be done. God will bring us through. I believe that He is continuing to be with me and my family right now and our church. Our hope for the future weekend has still given me lots to think about and lots to hold on to. There is still hope for the future and hope for all of us, whatever we're going through. God bless you and have a great weekend.